So for those of you who haven't learned with me personally, I'm Rabbi David Sif, living in Florida, and I I run what's called Kol Halev, which is um, both local and national, international. So this is our webpage, jewishconversion.org. We've got a weekly conversion class on Wednesdays at 11. This is new. I'm thinking this is like a monthly series of topical classes. And then at some point, we're going to, I think, do a weekly Torah study. So we're trying to build up our conversion stuff. I would also request that if you can, consider making a contribution for this class to Kol Halev. I'll put the link in the chat box. Or actually, I'll email you the link later on after the class. So we're talking today about what is the Messiah. So does anybody know what the word Messiah is in Hebrew?
Anointed one.
Okay, good. What does anointed mean?
It means chosen.
No. I mean, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say no. So that's a great intuition, but anointed is much more literal. It's much more literal. Does anybody know
it? It means you've been anointed with oil.
Yes, yes. It means you've been anointed with oil. So mashuach, the word in Hebrew, simply means that oil has been placed on your head. When they would appoint a king, the prophet would pour oil on their head, kind of like a coronation. When they would appoint a high priest, a Kohen, they would pour oil on his head. So that's what the anointing, literally anointed, means. Why do you think they would pour oil on the head of a priest or king when they are invested?
To set them apart.
So yeah, it's like it sets them apart. It's like it's probably a sacred oil. It's a symbol of their sacredness. Perhaps it's a symbol of a divine energy, a divine spirit resting on them. Perhaps. Any other thoughts about why they would put oil on someone's head when they become king or priest?
It's a holy oil, so it would be to signify that they were appointed and anointed by God.
Yes, yes. So the fact that it's holy, I think, does, right. It signifies, yeah, that it's not only humans doing it, but God. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so that's what Mashiach is. All of the Kohanim, the high priest was also called the anointed high priest. All the kings are anointed. So now, though, we're going back into some of the prophecies that this Mashiach that set up this idea of a king that's going to come in the future and basically redeem us somehow. So I will start with the book of Deuteronomy. Obviously, the book of Deuteronomy is, at least from a religious perspective, well before any exiles. But in Deuteronomy, Moses predicts an exile. He predicts a horrible exile, terrible things are going to happen to the Jewish people. Then he says this: when all these things befall you, the blessing and the curse that I've set before you, and you take them to heart amidst the various nations to which God has banished you. So you're out there, you've been exiled. By the way, what does exile here mean? You know?
Kicked out.
Kicked out from where?
The Holy Land.
Israel.
Yeah, kicked out from the land of Israel, right? Moshe is talking to the Jews. There's this idea in the Torah that the Jews belong in Israel. And exile means some foreign power comes in, kicks you out of the land of Israel. So the first exile was the Babylonian exile around the year 597 BC. They came back from the Babylonian exile, built the second temple. And then there was a second exile by the Romans, which ended when?
70.
It started in 70. When did the second exile end?
Well, it hasn't.
What's that?
Technically 1948.
Yeah, 1948.
That's
right?
a long time.
A long time. So in Hatikvah, the Hatikvah says the 2,000-year dream of the Jewish people. So, that's been the exile. There's debate now. I think some people feel like we're still in exile. Some people feel like we're not, but that's the exile. So right now, though, we're before the first exile. The Jews haven't even gotten into the land of Israel. But Moses is predicting you guys are going to be kicked out of the land of Israel. Horrible things are going to happen. But then you're going to take to heart what I've told you. Verse 2, you will return to your God and you and your children listen to God's command with all your heart and soul, just as I enjoin you this day. Then your God will restore, what did I just do? All right. Then your God will restore your fortunes and take you back in love. God will bring you together again from all the people where God has scattered you. So this is what's called the ingathering of the exiles. God's going to bring us back to the land of Israel. Even if you're outcast are at the end of the world, from there your God will gather you, from there God will fetch you. So did that happen at the end of the first exile?
Wasn't there?
You weren't there? That's fair. That's fair. So, but the Jews came back to the land of Israel.
Yes.
Was that?
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, you said after the first exile, there were Jews that stayed in Babylon.
Yeah, they came back. After not all Jews came back from Babylon. That's true. That's true. But mainly, right, the Jews did get the land of Israel back. They did return to the land of Israel after the first exile. Your God will bring you to the land your fathers possessed, and you shall possess it, and God will make you more prosperous and more numerous than your ancestors. So it's promising prosperity and lots of people. I don't know if that happened after they came back from Babylonia. I don't know about the economy then. Is the land of Israel more prosperous and numerous currently than our ancestors?
Yes.
Currently, yeah, it's amazing, right? So a lot of people look at the success of the land of Israel, religious people, and they say, look, this promise is coming true, right? You look at Israel's prosperity, it's making the desert bloom. Then your God will circumcise your heart and the hearts of your offspring to love your God with all your heart and soul in order that you may live. Has that happened?
No.
No, I don't think so, right? What would this look like to happen on a massive scale?
What do you mean to circumcise your heart?
Good question. Good question. So with circumcision, right, I'll get as non-graphically as I can while being specific. You remove a covering. So when there's a hard shell over my heart, then I'm gonna what covers our heart? What can cover our heart? So if we go to this week's, what's that?
Rib cage.
Thank you. If we go to this week's Parsha, right? Pharaoh sees his people suffering, and it says Pharaoh hardened his heart. So having a soft heart is, I care about what happens to other people. I love God. And the verse here, right? I love God with all my heart and soul. Having a soft heart is, I care about other people. I change if I need to. All those things I think are part of having a soft heart. So to circumcise my heart, it gets covered over, right? I'm like, I don't care. I don't care about people. I don't care about God. I cover it over with callousness. So to circumcise my heart is to get rid of any spiritual callousness. So whose hearts will be circumcised?
My heart?
So if you look at verse 6, right, your heart, it's plural. Moses is talking to God, to the entire Jewish people, and the hearts of your offspring. So whose hearts will be circumcised?
Everyone's.
Everyone's. There'll be no spiritual callousness. Right? What we have a term in Hebrew, yetzer hara, which means the evil inclination. There'll be no evil inclination. Everyone will be loving and giving and caring. Did that ever happen?
No.
No. First exile, second exile, never happened. So, right at the beginning of this, we could say, okay, that was the return to Babylonia. But now we're talking about, wait a second, this is much bigger. This is talking about a future where there's actually no evil in the world, right? This is what we're looking at. Your God will inflict all those curses upon the enemies and foes who persecuted you. So all the enemies who hurt the Jewish people, they're gonna get what's coming to them. You, however, will again heed God and obey all the divine commandments that I enjoin upon you this day. So what's going to happen in this time?
return to your God,
Mm-hmm.
all your heart and soul. That means you do it wholeheartedly.
Yep. And right, all your heart and soul, there won't be any negative parts left, right? There won't be part of myself that's like, I wish I could steal something, right? That all of us, okay, all my heart, even the negative parts. And then going farther, right? Verse 8, you will obey all the divine commandments. So in other words, there's some future time when everyone's going to be spiritually open and everyone is going to follow the Torah completely. It's not clear here whether we're talking about only the Jews or the whole world. So in a literal sense, Moses here is talking to the Jewish people. But I think, some people take this to say, okay, in the Messianic time, the entire world, there will be no evil. All the world will be doing God's will. You could interpret it either way. But right, they're following all the mitzvot. Verse 9, your God will grant you abounding prosperity in all your undertakings, in your issue from the womb, so there'll be lots of babies, the offspring of your cattle, and your produce of the soil. For God will again delight in your well-being as in that of your ancestors, since you will be heeding your God and keeping divine commandments and laws that are recorded in the book of the teaching once you return to your God with all your heart and all your soul. So maybe this is just a grandiose way of describing coming back from the Babylonian exile to the Second Temple period, but it sure sounds like this amazing future when there's no more evil and everyone is doing God's will. So any comments or questions on Deuteronomy before we move on? Okay. Okay. So this is when in Christian circles, when they talk about the Messiah, the Jesus, there's a lot of Christological interpretation of this verse. So let's look at this verse. What I see for them is not yet. What I behold will not be soon. A star rises from Jacob. A scepter comes forth from Israel. It smashes the brow of Moab, the foundation of the children of Seth. Edom becomes a possession. Seir a possession of its enemies. Israel is triumphant. So what is this weird verse predicting?
No idea.
So Moab, Edom,
Is
Seth.
it predicting the star, the Bethlehem star?
Well,
allegedly.
So if we don't go into a Christological interpretation, if we just take it for its face, if your star is rising, what does that mean?
Horoscope?
Well,
means
yeah,
I'm becoming
Astrology.
more famous.
Yeah, you're becoming more famous. Things are going well, right? You're ascending. You're becoming brighter. So your nation will become brighter. Your scepter comes forth. You'll rule. You'll have, right, because the scepter is a sign of ruling. It smashes the brow of Moab. You're going to conquer your neighbor, these Moabites who are always trying to conquer you. So in other words, what I see for them is not yet. This is going to happen. You still have the Moabites around you. Your star is going to rise. You're going to have a strong kingdom. You're going to smash Moabites. You're going to smash the children of Seth, and you're going to smash Edom and Seir and be triumphant. Right? You're going to triumph over a victor issues from Jacob to wipe out what's left of Ir. You're going to be victorious over Ir. He saw Amalek, and then taking this up at the seam, he said, a leading nation is Amalek. Its fate is to perish forever, and you're going to destroy Amalek as well. So on a literal level, this is a military victory over these surrounding nations. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Now, Amalek is a little more complicated because it does say there's an eternal war against Amalek from generation to generation. I don't see it here, but it is like this final victory over Amalek. and this final victory over evil nations. Because Amalek was the embodiment of evil, because he attacked the weak. He attacked the women and children from behind. So perhaps there is this sense here that this final historical battle over these evil nations surrounding. Okay. So I will say, okay, this next verse, this is when Jacob is dying, he's on his deathbed. The scepter shall not depart from Judah. Does anybody know what that means?
In a literal sense, it sounds like that Judah, no matter what, will always fight.
So very good. The scepter here is the kingship. So Judah, I mean, Shevet here is more like it's the flag of royalty, I think. Or it's a staff. It's a staff. So if you think about Moshe having a staff, Aaron having a staff, so it's a staff of leadership. So the kings will always come from the tribe of Judah. Right, the ruler's staff from between his feet. Until he comes to Shiloh, it's really not clear what that is. It's this that I will say it's very unclear. I know that the Christological interpretation, there's a thing where Jesus comes to Shiloh at the Armageddon, I think. It's very unclear, right? The homage of the people shall be his. Right, that this king is, I guess maybe Shiloh is this victory where the other nations then respect him. Any other comments or questions on this verse?
I thought would mean that his reign won't end.
Yeah, his reign won't end. Yes. And it comes, and in the end, he has this complete reign. Everyone respects him. Everyone respects his reign. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So this is another one that's about the kind of kingship always belonging to the tribe of Judah. The kingship that will never end, right? A shoot shall grow out of the stump of Jesse. You guys all know who Jesse was?
Yes, it's the father of King David.
Father King David, that's right. So in other words, the stump of Jesse, that means King David's this lineage, that there's always going to be a descendant of King David. A twig shall sprout from its stalk. The Spirit of God shall alight upon him. A spirit of wisdom and insight, a spirit of counsel and valor, a spirit of devotion and reverence for God. He shall sense the truth. He shall not judge by what his eyes behold, nor decide by what his ears perceive. Thus he shall judge the poor with equity and decide with justice for the lowly of the land. He shall strike down the ruthless with the rod of his mouth, slay the wicked with the breath of his lips. Justice shall be the girdle of his loins, and faithfulness the girdle of his waist. The wolf shall dwell with the lamb, the leopard with the kid, the calf, the beast of prey, and the fatling together. With a little boy to herd them, the cow and the bear shall graze. Their young shall lie down together. So the lion, the ox shall eat straw, a babe shall play over a viper's hole, and an infant passes its hand over an adder's den. In all of my sacred mount, nothing evil or vile shall be done, for the land shall be filled with devotion to God as water covers the sea. In that day, the stock of Jesse that has remained standing shall become a standard to people. Nations shall seek his counsel, and his abode shall be honored. So what exactly is he predicting?
I'm not certain.
Okay. So by the way, this was written around 700 BC. The Assyrians are attacking the north, the Babylonians the south. But so that's historical context, but we do read this as like, okay, some sort of amazing future because it hasn't come true yet. So there's always going to be some descendant of King David. The Spirit of God shall light upon. So there's going to be some king with the Spirit of God, spirit of wisdom and insight, a spirit of counsel and valor, devotion and reverence for God. There's going to be this great, amazing king who respects God, who has like this spirit of wisdom and justice. He senses the truth. He doesn't judge by what his eyes behold, right? He judges, he doesn't go on his instinct. He judges based on right and wrong and studies things. He judges fairly, because that's part of the job of the king, is to be the ultimate judge. He strikes down the ruthless with the rod of his mouth and the wicked with the breath of his lips. So this king is not only going to judge fairly, he's going to punish bad people. Justice is the girdle of his loins, faithfulness the girdle of his waist. So far, all we have is, okay, this is a king, justice, and they judge people fairly and they bring justice to bad people. Verse 6, the wolf shall lie down with the lamb. So in other words, there's going to be no more violence, right? There's the wolf, the whether you take it literally as like animals or just metaphorically as like there's no evil people who are going to attack bad, right? There's not going to be evil people attacking possible potential victims. So this is very similar to that prophecy in Deuteronomy, right? There's going to be no more evil. This amazing future with no more evil. The calf, the beast of prey, and fatling together with a little boy to herd them. Why do you think it says a little boy to herd them? Putting aside what you've heard from Christian sources, why would it say with a little boy to herd them?
Because King David was a shepherd.
Well, this is after King David.
Oh,
This is afterwards. This is saying there's going to be a King David, a descendant of King David,
yes.
who's going to make this happen.
Because a child is innocent.
Okay, a child's innocent. A child's also weak, right?
Mhm.
Can a child chase a wolf away from sheep?
No,
Right? You don't want to send a child off as a shepherd. So
No.
here the point is there's no violence. I can send a little kid off to be shepherd. I can send my 2-year-old to the store to buy a package of eggs. That's right. That's what it's saying. The cow and bear shall graze. There's nothing to be scared of. The young shall lie down together. The lion, the ox, like the ox shall eat straw. So this is this vision, again, of the messianic future where there's no evil. By the way, based on this one, some people say in the messianic future will all be vegetarians as well. Because, well, if the lions are vegetarians, there's a baby shall play over a viper's hole. So even the snakes won't bite. An infant will pass its hand over an adder's den. I've read this 100 times. I don't know what an adder is. Does anybody know what an adder is?
Snake.
Yes, snake.
The
It's a
snake.
type of snake you get in the UK.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what an adder usually in Israel. And there was one that thing doesn't understand lions. Has ever been lions in Israel?
I assume so. I mean, they
A
talk a lot about
long
lions.
time ago.
Long time
Yeah,
ago.
Long
I
Yeah.
time
actually
ago.
went on a tangent studying that, and yeah, they were a long time ago, but they've gone extinct.
Yeah, that's why the House of Judah has the lion as its sigil.
Right. Another thing, by the way, that's almost all gone are the cedars of Lebanon. So in the book of Psalms, he talks about the cedars of Lebanon. Well, they were all cut down to make the train tracks. But you can find a couple of big cedars, but yeah, it's not, the wildlife isn't what it used to be. Nothing, okay, in all of my sacred mountain, nothing evil or vile shall be done, for the land shall be filled with devotion to God as water fills the sea. So similar to Deuteronomy, we have this future where there's going to be universal spiritual devotion.
And no droughts.
No droughts. In that day, the stock of Jesse that's had remained standing, so that's whoever's the king of Israel at that time, shall become a standard to people. Nations shall seek his counsel, his abode shall be honored. In other words, there's going to be this king of Israel. When all this is happening, there's no more evil, and nations shall seek his counsel. People will come to Israel for advice. His abode shall be honored. They'll honor him. On that day, my sovereign will apply a divine hand to redeeming the other part of this people from Assyria, from Egypt, Patros, Cush, Elam, Shinar, Hamat, and the coastlands. So in other words, God's going to bring back all the exiles, all the Jews from all around the world coming back to the land of Israel, and assemble the banished of Israel and gather the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. So by the way, when we pray, actually, we say, gather our exiles from the four corners of the earth. Matthew or Ruth, do you guys know what we do when we say gather the exiles from the four corners of the earth?
Bring back the diaspora.
So we gather the four corners of our talis. We gather.
Oh,
So okay, so let me ask you. what parts of this have happened? What parts haven't?
Some of the tribes have come back.
A lot of Jews have come back to Israel. Yeah.
Yes, I don't know which tribes.
No one knows. They got all mixed up. We don't know which tribes have come back. But a
Oh,
lot of Jews,
yeah, chat one about the tribal down. I don't know all the names of the tribes.
right. Well, the tribes all got mixed up, right, all with each other. So we don't know where they are, but certainly some of the exiles have come back, not all of them. A lot of people look at the current state of Israel as the birth pangs of the Messiah. That's the beginning. So the Messiah, though, is basically going to be this well-respected head of Israel, king of Israel, descendant of King David, at a time when Israel all the Jews come back to Israel. There's universal peace, universal spirituality, all those things we saw in the book of Deuteronomy, really. Okay. Okay, so this is similar, very similar. This is Jeremiah. A time is coming, declares God, when I will raise up a true branch of David's line. He shall reign as king and shall prosper and do what's just and right in the land. It's just the same as what we saw in Isaiah. In his days, Judah shall be delivered and Israel shall dwell secure. So what did we just add? No one's going to attack the nation of Israel. Israel shall dwell, or maybe no one will attack, or maybe they'll be totally safe from attackers. This is the name by which he shall be called. God is our vindicator, which may be a play on words, as this footnote says. It may be that Jeremiah was talking about a contemporary king called King Zedekiah. But basically, he's saying this is a nickname for this king because you look at this king, you'll be like, wow, God really protected the Jewish people. Assuredly, a time is coming, declares God, when it shall no longer be said, as God lives, who brought the Israelites out of the land of Egypt, but rather, as God lives, who brought out and led the offsprings of Israel to the northlands and all the lands to which I banished them, and they shall dwell upon their soil. So in other words, all the Jews are going to return to the land of Israel. Any questions or comments on Jeremiah? Okay. I think I'm going to, yeah. What's that?
Oh, that's my cat.
Oh, okay. So this is in the book of Ezekiel. This is written 585 BC, so just during the Babylonian exile. So God tells him to take one stick, and it says of Judah and his Israelites, one stick and says of Joseph and Ephraim, verse 17, bring these two sticks close together so they become one stick. And if anybody asks you, what are you doing? Verse 19, he says, thus says God, I'm going to take the stick of Joseph, which in the hand of Ephraim, and then the tribes of Israel associated with him. I will place the stick of Judah with it, make it into one stick. They shall be joined in my hand. So what does joining these two sticks symbolize?
Unity.
Unity of the Jewish people, right? We've got the northern kingdom, southern kingdom, exiled. I'm going to bring them all back together. You shall declare, thus says God, I'm going to take the Israelite people from among the nations they've gone to, gather them from every quarter, and bring them to their own land, right? So it's all about bringing the Jews back to Israel. I will make them a single nation in the land on the hills of Israel. One king shall be king of them all. Do you know about the divided kingdom?
Yes, north and
Okay,
south.
So does everybody know? Does anybody not know?
Just vaguely.
Okay, I only know vaguely too, but I'll tell you what I vaguely know, is that after the early, these big kings, King David, King Shlomo, Shaul, who had a unified kingdom, it split into northern and southern. And so when he says there shall be one king, he's talking about a unified kingdom, which has a single king ruling over both north and south. Never again shall they be two nations. Never again shall they be divided into two kingdoms. The Jewish people will be unified. Never shall they ever again defile themselves by fetishes and abhorrent things. So there were a lot of kings who got into trouble bringing idols into the temple and other terrible things. I will save them in all their settlements where they sinned, and I will purify them. Then they shall be my people, and I will be their God. When it says save them in their settlements where they sinned, what do you think that means? What are those settlements?
Homes, the
I'm
homes.
thinking, I'm thinking that it's contemporaneous of when it was written, probably the apostates who left the Israelite faith.
Right. I don't know if they're apostates necessarily. They might still be Jews just doing things that Jews aren't supposed to do. Right. So in other words, but not only that they're doing things Jews shouldn't be able to do, but you remember this is during the Babylonian exile. So in other words, these settlements, meaning they were doing terrible things. They well, maybe you're right. I'm not sure whether he's talking about in the land of Israel or out of the land of Israel. I was thinking their settlements are outside the land of Israel. But what do you think saving them here means?
Bringing them back to Torah.
So bring them back to Torah, right? Physical safety and also spiritual safety, right? Bring them back to Torah, right? I bring them back to Torah where they've sinned. I find them, even though they've sinned. God doesn't like reaching out to sinful places.
Healing, need healing and healing
Right. So it could be
and
spiritual or
purifying.
purifying. Yeah. So I think
Healing
it's,
and purifying,
Mhm.
and then healing.
Yep. Then they shall be my people, and I will be their God. So I'm going to purify them of their evil, of their transgressions. They'll be my God. My servant David shall be king over them. Remember, we said this is after King David, meaning a descendant of King David, because the king is always supposed to be a descendant of King David. There shall be one shepherd for all of them. There's one king over the land of Israel. They shall follow my rules and faithfully obey my laws. This idea that they're going to come back to Israel and have this amazing, everyone follows Torah, everyone is good, beautiful place. Thus they shall remain in the land I gave to my servant Jacob, and in which your ancestors dwelt. So they're never going to be exiled again. Right? Clearly that hasn't happened. Right? That didn't happen when they came back. So that certainly wasn't the second temple. They and their children's children shall dwell there forever, with my servant David as their prince for all time. When it says my servant David, do you think it's talking about one person or just somebody from that Davidic lineage?
I don't know if they mean male or do they mean both male and female?
Well,
Because
you mean with my servant, the
yes,
servant
Well,
David? Well, the king, I mean, in the Bible, the king's always a male.
yeah.
I mean, I like Nikki Haley, so I'm totally like female leaders, but I mean, I certainly for when these prophets are talking, they're envisioning a king who's a man. Is that what you were commenting on, or
Yes, yes.
yeah? But meaning yeah. Go ahead, Matthew.
So it's also said that there's a Messiah in every generation waiting for
Yes.
conditions to be right. So, I mean, it's not necessarily just one specific person.
Right. It's whoever's the king, and it's whoever's the king when all this happens. And actually, what you're quoting, this idea there's a Messiah in every generation, I didn't even know that's there in the Bible. I mean, that's there in the Talmud. But in the Bible, it's like there's going to be this king at this time when all this amazing stuff happens. That's the Messiah. And then when they die, the new king is going to again be called Messiah because Mashiach means the anointed one. So Mashiach is it's not like, so the Kohen is also called the Mashiach because it means the anointed Kohen. So once this first Messiah comes and they announce, okay, there's world peace, there's universal spirituality, and then they die. There's another one. At least by the Bible, that person would continue to be called the Mashiach because they're the anointed king. Later on, though, there is this sense that there's a soul of the Messiah. Anybody can have that's we don't know who has that soul in any generation, but they're waiting to reveal themselves for the moment when the world is ready and when God is ready. There's a, this is, I was trying to teach this session from Torah, from the Bible, from Tanakh, and not from Talmud. But the Talmud has a story where the prophet Elijah is supposed to escort the Messiah. And so there's a rabbi who met the prophet Elijah. He said, "When are you coming?" And when's Mashiach coming? And the Messiah told him, "Oh, Mashiach's already here." He said, "Really? Where?" To go to the city gates of Rome. There's a poor beggar, and you'll find him. He unwraps. He's leprous, and he wraps a bandage and unwraps and wraps and unwraps. Presumably, he doesn't want to unwrap all his bandages because he wants to be ready to go in an instant. So he goes and he finds the guy and he says, "When are you coming?" And the Mashiach says, "Today." Great. So the rabbi goes home and nothing happens. So then he asks Elijah, he says, how could this happen? He said today. Did he lie to me? And Elijah says, "Oh no, he was quoting a verse from the Torah. The Torah says, 'Today, if you listen.'" In other words, if you listen, I am prepared to come today and redeem the Jewish people and create a universal peace and get rid of the Yetzer Hara, get rid of evil from the human psyche and from the universe. I'm ready today, but the world has to be ready. So, there's a history of, there are people who think now that Rabbi Schneerson had this soul. There's people who think that Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, the Baal Shem Tov. But the fact is, if they didn't do the job, they maybe they had the soul, but we don't have world peace. We don't have universal getting rid of the evil from the human psyche. It just hasn't happened. So that's I'm actually going to skip. This is how Rambam summarizes it. This is Maimonides, who is a philosopher from the 12th century. "If a king will arise from the house of David, who diligently contemplates Torah and observes its mitzvot as prescribed by the written and oral law, as David, his ancestor, will compel all of Israel to walk in the way of Torah and rectify breaches in its observance and fight the wars of God, we may with assurance consider him the Mashiach. If he succeeds in that, he builds a temple in its place and gathers the dispersed of Israel, he's definitely the Mashiach." So in other words, for Rambam, it's not really about who he is. It's about like whoever is the king who does all this. And that's how we know the Messiah. "He will then improve the entire world, motivating all the nations to serve God together. As Zephaniah says, I will transform people to a purer language, so they will all call upon the name of God and serve him with one purpose." Okay, so now he's going to get to Rambam. This is his discussion of why Jesus wasn't the Messiah, which I think is probably obvious by now from our discussion. So before we get to him, so from our discussion, why from a Jewish perspective is Jesus not the Messiah?
Maybe
Didn't fulfill.
The temple wasn't built. What else?
Well, there's no definitive proof that he's actually from the Davidic line.
So even not worrying about that, right? Even not worrying about that, that's only a prerequisite, right? It really is about what did he accomplish? And by the way, right? We're talking about a literal king of Israel. We're not talking about someone who claims to be the spiritual king of Israel. We're talking about literally the ruler of a people who brings this nation to an amazing level of spiritual enlightenment and menschlichkeit. So, right. So, and one other thing, right? It says he brings people to following Torah. And one of the big Jewish issues with Jesus is his followers, at least, don't follow the Torah. Jesus.
I have a theory,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That it's been changed by the Romans because it's very pro-Roman, and it used to trigger me every Easter. And I saw things. What I was seeing, must have been written by the Romans, and it was translated and it was done 60 or 70 years. So you're getting both hand. So you would have no idea. It could be probably a small group of Jews. They never said anything what was written there, what was being written in the Bible. It's been put out of all context. It's been written by the Romans, and it's so pro-Roman.
Interesting.
Well, there's the fact that our earliest texts are also Paul's, and he was extremely anti-Torah.
Right. So Paul,
is a Roman citizen.
Right.
And wanted to make Christianity palatable to Roman citizens who were not Jewish, who didn't follow the Torah. I'm confused because you said the earliest. I thought so. The Gospels are not earlier than Paul.
No, the Pauline epistles were written in the 50s, and the earliest Gospels were written about a decade later.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, there's actually a book that I'm reading right now about it, called A Jewish Understanding of the New Testament by Rabbi Samuel Sandmel. It was written in the 70s, I believe. 56 is when it was first published.
Oh yeah, he does.
Interesting. Right. Interesting. So I have always assumed that Jesus was much more Jewish than Paul depicts him.
Yes.
I think it's the book, I want to say it's the book of Matthew that depicts him really as very Jewish, just trying to emphasize this, that, hey, don't just go through the rituals, but, focus on the meaning of it. In which case,
yes.
he's very much in the tradition of the prophets, right?
Yes, it's just been changed. It's just been manipulated.
Right. I don't actually know enough. I would like to study like exactly what Jesus might have meant when he said, "Don't call me son of, don't call people call me this, but tell me this," and kind of what he thought about himself. But it's kind of interesting. Like if he was hoping to be the Messiah, then
I don't think he was.
Well,
I think that was put it on.
But let me finish the thought though, because I've heard this from scholars that if he hoped to be the Messiah, then what did he hope to accomplish? Remember, he was just before the destruction of Jerusalem by the Romans. So what would he hope to accomplish?
It's actually funny you mentioned that, because I am actually reading the book of Matthew at the moment as well.
Right.
And there's a lot of crossover, because you have him preaching about bringing people to Torah, bringing the in this version, this translation that I'm reading, it says Gentile. So I'm assuming that it means bringing non-Jews to Torah. But then he's also preaching the same thing as John the Baptist, who was an apocalyptic prophet, telling people, hey, the world's going to end.
Right. So it's possible he thought the world was going to end. It's really possible he was hoping to be the Messiah. He was hoping that God's going to kick out these Romans from Israel. God's going to punish them and going to usher in this new era of universal Jewish spirituality in the land of Israel. And then it didn't happen. Yeah. So, right. And so then when it didn't happen, the followers have to reinterpret, oh, what did he mean when he said he was the Messiah? What did that mean? Why did he die? Like the Messiah is not supposed to die. The Messiah is actually supposed to kill the Romans, not die. So then they had to reinterpret it when it didn't work. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So this is what Rambam says, if he did not succeed to this degree, right? Rambam had just said that the Messiah was supposed to bring people together, improve the world, get people to follow Torah. If he didn't succeed to this degree or was killed, he surely is not the Redeemer. Rather, he should be considered as all the other proper and complete kings of the Davidic dynasty who died. God caused him to arise only to test the many, as Daniel states, some of the wise men will stumble, to try them, to refine, and to clarify until the appointed time, because the set time's in the future. So just time's not ready. Jesus of Nazareth, who aspired to be Mashiach and was executed by the court, was also alluded to in Daniel's prophecies, as it states, the vulgar among your people shall exalt themselves and attempt to fulfill the vision, but they shall stumble. So Rambam doesn't like Jesus. Can there be a greater stumbling block than Christianity? All the prophets spoke of Mashiach as the Redeemer of Israel and their Savior, who gathered their dispersed and strengthened their observance of mitzvot. In contrast, Christianity caused Jews to be slain by the sword, the remnants to be scattered and humbled. So obviously, he's not writing about Jesus's perspective. He's writing from his time, which is, after Jews have suffered mass murders by Christians. The Torah to be altered, right? They don't follow Torah. And the majority of the world to err and serve a God other than the Lord, right? Following Jesus is considered a form of idolatry. So that's what Rambam has to say about it. I wanted to actually close with what Zechariah says. Right. So Zechariah says, God shall be sovereign king over all the earth. On that day, God will be one and God's name will be one. So there is this idea that we are working towards a messianic era. Everything we do should move the world towards this time. Everything we do should move the world towards a time when God really is the king over the world. Because you notice in this verse, God shall be king over all the earth. That means God's not yet king. So it's our job to make God king over all the earth. And of course, the most control I have in the world is over my own life. So the way I make God king over the earth is I start in my own life by making God king over my own life, over my own world. And then we hope that as each of us do this and that energy spreads, God becomes king over all the earth. So each of us can participate in moving us forward towards the Messiah by living a righteous life. It doesn't matter who we think is the Messiah. It doesn't matter. You want to think Jesus had the messianic soul. I personally don't care. You want to think whoever, right? King David, they all say had it. Moshe had it. Baal Shem Tov, Shabbatai Tzvi, some people thought had it, and then that turned out terribly. It's not really about believing in a certain person. It's about how in my life do I move the world towards this time when God becomes the universal ruler of the earth. And then he says, they translate it as God will be one, or they translate there shall be one God. You can also translate it God will be one. So there's an idea that God is broken now. The earth is broken, God is broken, and my job in life is to heal that brokenness in the universe and in God. And everything I do, it's called a tikkun, which means a healing, a repair. So every time I can do a tikkun on the world or on my soul, I'm bringing the world that much closer to the Messianic era. This is the Talmud. So when a person dies, the Talmud says, they ask a couple questions. Did you conduct business faithfully? Did you designate times for Torah study? Did you have kids? Did you anticipate? What's that?
I'm single, so I can't have children. I'm 60.
Well, you could have died. I don't know. I guess the answer will be no.
Yeah.
Did you anticipate salvation? Did you expect the Messiah? Did you eagerly await the Messiah? And did you engage in wisdom? So there's this idea that we should eagerly anticipate the Messiah, that we should hope and pray. Every Saturday night, we sing about Elijah, and we hope that Elijah comes that night. On Passover, we pour a glass of wine for Elijah, and we hope that Elijah comes, that the Messiah comes this year. We always tell our kids, yes, Messiah is going to come this year. There's even a famous song about even though Messiah waits, I still believe that Messiah is coming. So we maintain this belief. We try to repair the world because it's, you know, it's something we believe in deeply, but in the future. Any other questions or comments about anything we've said or anything we haven't said?
Yeah, this is Ruth. I
Hi,
do.
Ruth. Yeah, please.
I got stuck way back in Deuteronomy and I just couldn't get my head out of that Deuteronomy zone, right?
Okay.
So here's what I was thinking about. I have these really nice Jehovah's Witness people in my neighborhood.
Uh-huh.
They're really nice people and they're very scholarly, right? So I talk to them a lot. Anyways, one of the things that they were talking about, you know, I get all turned around with what they're talking about a lot of the time, but now things are starting to make sense to me because what they're going around trying to do is have people follow Torah, bottom line. They want people to follow Torah and they want people to follow Torah now so that they're ushering in that world. And I hadn't put two and two together before. I was like, what are you guys doing? Like, what's your end game here? But anyway, so thanks. I'm not going to talk to him anymore, but in that regard, but thanks, because that helps me because I couldn't figure out what they were doing.
You're welcome. Anything else anyone wants to chime in? So thank you for joining me today. I will say, you know, if you're not in our conversion class and would like more information, please let me know. Please consider supporting Kol Halev by at least for today's class by contributing. I will send the link on PayPal, but if you could make a contribution to support today's class, that would be great. And I think we're definitely doing another session in a month. I'll let you guys know the topic. And then possibly a Torah study, Bible study as well, Torah study. But it was great to have you guys along and look forward to seeing you next time and be in touch.
Yeah, thanks a million. When you send your PayPal link out, will you also include the link to your website?
Definitely. Sure.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Bye.
Okay, take care. Bye.